But there are landings and small harbors at Rome itself. There's like a marble harbor where they bring in all the blocks of stone and columns for the monuments. There's a column where they land all the olive oil. Have you ever heard of Monte Testaccio in Rome? And they also ate them, constantly because they're pretty delicious apparently. But
they ate the pigeons.
Oh yeah, all the time.
No.
Oh yeah. Because again, it's a pretty nice plump bird. It's kind of like a chicken, just waddles around, easy to catch.
Yeah, but chickens will eat you. Pigeons are nice and shit. They're
Well,
just walking right next to you, doing their little crip walk, having a good time.
You and I say that, but Julius Caesar just saw a walking meal. One of those things.
What was I'm gonna come back to religion in a minute,
Sure,
but what was a wealthy person's eclectic meal back then? What were some rare things that Caesar would be like, get me a shallot of whatever?
Oh yes. Oh, there was a gargantuan array of peacocks. Peacock is not a good thing to eat. It's not something you want to be eating, but it's fancy and it's rare. So the Romans had peacock farms.
They were eating peacock.
They were eating peacock all the time. All kinds of rare birds. They developed a taste for a while among the elite for the how to be polite about this. The reproductive parts of female pigs, like pig womb, was a big delicacy. Yeah,
they were eating pig pussy.
They were, and actually pig pussy. Yeah, I didn't want to say it, but yes,
You're in Jersey. You can say what you want.
They ate pig pussy. Yes.
Oh my God.
Prepared, one assumes carefully, but yeah.
I'm going to eat the clitoris of this pig.
Yes. Bring me, miss. So yeah. Anyway,
let me lick the top.
There are other less crazy things. Like there was this fish called the red mullet. We think of business in front, party in the back. No, it's the fish in this case. It's just this kind of medium-sized fish that apparently tastes pretty good. And there aren't that many that grow beyond about a few pounds. And a big mullet was a delicacy that people would pay almost its weight in silver for a while. So it was the mullet craze that almost bankrupted Rome's aristocracy. The mullet craze, but it's just fish. All kinds of other fish. Sturgeon from Central Europe were a delicacy. They used to eat pike from the Tyber, but it got so polluted they couldn't eat them anymore.
Pike?
Yeah, like a European pike, like a northern pike sort of thing. Like we have those pike here in America, like northern pike. They're European pike, just this long, predatory fish.
Oh, I'm not familiar with that.
Oh yeah.
Can we pull up pike fish?
Yeah, like a European pike. It's just this big mean-looking fish.
I don't think they're swimming in the Tiber now. I'll tell you that.
No.
That didn't look the cleanest out there.
Yeah, that's the North American northern pike. But it looks kind of like that though.
Yeah, that'll feed a family.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, before the pollution kicks in.
What was actually there's a good question because Rome is like an hour inland. And it's connected to the waterways by the River Tiber and everything. Right. But did they have major ports existing in the city, or were the ports back where Ostia, I think it's Ostia or whatever, on the coast there, and then they would just work as needed supply back to Rome? How did that happen?
So most overseas trade goes to Ostia at the mouth of the Tiber, or to its annex Portus, just called the Port, which is a big artificial harbor made from Roman concrete that's guarded from storms, and so that's like the grain fleet docks. And they'll have this constant parade of little barges going to and from Ostia and Portus to Rome. But there are landings and small harbors at Rome itself. There's like a marble harbor where they bring in all the blocks of stone and columns for the monuments. There's a column where they land all the olive oil. Have you ever heard of Monte Testaccio in Rome? It's the mountain of broken pots. So over the course of the 2nd century, this hundreds of thousands of giant vases of olive oil, amphorae, are brought from Spain by the emperors. It's subsidized. They're dumped in these big holding bins in the warehouse district of Rome, which is by this landing site, and then smashed in this huge heap that eventually grows to well over 100 feet tall. And it's still there. There are millions and millions of broken pots in this artificial mountain on the edges of Rome.
Can we see this? What's it called again?
Yeah, Monte Testaccio.
Monte Testaccio.
That's Testaccio.
Yeah.
So Testaccio.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's a big grass-covered mound now. But I went there this past spring, and whenever you dig into it, you just get this sea of broken pots.
All right, can you spell it again?
Monte Testaccio. Testaccio.
Uh-huh.
You see my Italian still there a little bit.
You got it. You got it. There it is. Yeah. So you see like how the interior is all those stacked up pots.
Whoa!
And it's just millions upon millions of fragments. And so that kind of attests to the scale of imports into Rome. That all those came from these like large, like 50-liter amphorae that are carried to the top and smashed in rows because you can't reuse those pots. The oil seeps into the pottery. It must have stank terribly, all that rancid olive oil. But there it was, an artificial hill.
How big of boats could they get into the Tyber? Because the way I think of the Tyber, that shit's tight.
It is. So think of like like a long, narrow barge, probably 40, 50 feet long, something like that. That wouldn't, it'd have kind of a shallow draft. It wouldn't sink more than a few feet into the water. I don't have any tonnage estimates for you or anything, but think of a small, light boat. And there were guilds of guys whose whole job was just to bring the stuff up and down to and from Rome. Right. There were even a whole guild of divers who would sail, because the ships sank all the time because they're so crowded, they crash into each other.
They'd sink in the Tyber.
In the Tyber. So their job was to salvage the cargoes that went down into the river.
It's like the guys now have to clean out the bikes from these little rivers and shit.
Exactly, right. or the divers in the Hudson. It's like the small scale version of those guys.
Yeah, very. I mean, the Hudson's big and wide and large,
and it's dredged and it's deep.
Yes.
But it's the same thing. It's so busy because Rome needs so much. And it's all coming that little umbilical cord, that 20 miles of river between Ostia and Rome.
So they're just Alessi, actually, I should have said this way earlier. It's my bad. Can we just pull up a map of Rome real quick, like modern day Rome? Just so that I can, on Google. Perfect.
And if you go out like -1 maybe.
Go out, open in maps. Perfect. Love that. Go out minus.
So you see like where the airport is now. Fiumicino Airport is right on top of Portus, that artificial port. And Ostia is right next to it.
Got it. Okay. So can we actually zoom in on Rome? Because now we went to a new screen. Let's zoom in. I want to be able to see the Tiber real quick.
Yeah, it might be easier if you go back to like just the map. Not
see
the
it in the
satellite
middle.
view.
See where it says Trastevere right there? Yeah. That's Rome right there. So zoom in there. So you can see the Tiber coming up here. So essentially, it's not like there's any within Rome one port spot. They just pull up wherever it is, wherever they gotta drop it off because they're on these tight boats. Yeah,
there are a few probably like landing points. Like there's one under the Aventine Hill. That's where all of this Monte Testaccio is right over there. There's one. The original one is kind of by the island in the Tiber because there's a ford there naturally. The river gets kind of shallow, so they kind of landed them there initially. But probably wherever they needed them. It wasn't like now there's those big embankments. If you're in Rome, there are those big high stone walls on both sides. It used to be kind of narrow, a wide shelving coast. It wasn't so far beneath the city as it is now. It was much easier to land stuff on the Tiber.
Understood.
It might be much more gradual banks.
And what was if we're in the 1st century AD right here, where it's 1 million people, what were the most... I don't know, maybe I could say the 5 most common occupations. I would imagine fishermen might be one of them. And logistics, like driving the boats is another one. But what else were people doing?
So everywhere but Rome, job number 1 is farmer, of course. That is the only job of 9/10 of all people in the Roman Empire. Right. But in Rome itself, farmers still on the list, actually. There are garden markets all around. Greenhouses, actually, primitive greenhouses. People who raised vegetables and fruit for the Roman market. They're within a few miles of the city. So there actually are a lot of farmers in and around Rome. They actually found one of these near the Rome subway. They're digging that new subway line C, and they dug through a peach farm, of all things.
Wait, they're making a new one?
A new subway line,
So they're adding to the X?
Yeah, so there's the big X, and they're kind of a new like spur. I mean, it's taking them 20 years. They're still working on it, but they're just now making a new station, kind of right by like the Vittorio Emanuele monument.
Yeah.
Anyway, so farmers on that list, even in Rome itself. Number 1 is probably the building trades, believe it or not, laborer for building. When the emperors are building these baths, the Colosseum, any big building project, there's always something going on in Rome, private or public. It requires a lot of unskilled labor. So people come in from the countryside, actually, during the summers when there's not a lot of work going on, on the farm, to work for the summer on construction sites. They'll help them, so the Romans have concrete, famously. And besides being very sturdy, very cheap, and able to be laid underwater, Roman concrete requires no skill, pretty much. You build brick facings on their side, kind of brick walls. And instead you just put down a big layer of rubble, ground up rock, and you paste down the concrete like mortar on top of it in thin layers. So all these guys are doing is kind of shoveling concrete, which is very, very dry. It's kind of like a paste as opposed to like a fluid, like modern concrete, onto this rubble and tamping it down, with like iron tampers. And that's their whole job.
Whoa.
So you don't have to like learn to be a mason or, any kind of other skill. Often there are these teams of thousands of people who are either digging foundations, laying concrete, hauling away rubble. So probably number one job is labor for construction. For job number two might be domestic servant, or slave, really. People who are working in these big aristocratic households. There are hundreds of them, like I said before, in these houses of the senators. And they have a ton of specialized jobs, everything from hairdresser to, silver polisher, hyper-specialized. And they are very trained, but they do the one thing for a family. Often they'll be free, these slaves, because they're so close to the family. Boy, and then you kind of all the different merchants, and there are, a huge array of them. Everything from people who manage. I'm trying to think what the job number three would be if we were kind of think of it in those terms. Maybe farmer would be number three. Entertainers are a big class of people, not one of the top five, but a surprisingly large one. Everything from like tragic and comedic actors to pantomimes. To what amounts to striptease, a huge amount of that sort of thing.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here